Hello, my name is Mike, and I'd like to welcome you to a kind of build overview for my Affliction characters. So rather than doing like, I usually do these each league, but rather than doing like each character individually, I'm just going to do one video. We're going to showcase them all, and if you want more detail, I'm going to paste all of the path of buildings below, and we can go from there. So, just wanted to say I did get a kind of a late league start. I started playing about a week into league, and it's pretty late into league right now. So, if you do want to play one of these characters, I'm sure you can buy the items fairly cheap. So, yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so starting out, this is Puritea. This is a build that's seen a couple different forms this league. So, starting out, this was a Herald of Purity Guardian. Pretty simple. You cast Ball Lightning. I had a 5-linked Herald of Purity. You cast Ball Lightning, and it triggers your Herald of Purities, and they just kind of kill everything. It was a crit block variant. High crit, pretty decent block, and I ended up swapping it to SRS because everybody said SRS was going to be the build of the league, and honestly, Herald of Purity, I didn't like it because you can't control the actual Herald, like the actual Purity things, and like you would be running a map and you'd be standing there, like 3 of them would be hitting the mob in front of you, and then they would just fuck off and you would die because now the mob is attacking you and not them. And yeah, it got really annoying. So I'm just going to kind of hover over the gear and the links. So I've got a Taz teaching. It's just a minion scepter with a lot of crit. You can read the gems. I'm not going to read the gems out loud. Just a basic rare helmet with res and life. The shield again, just a minion shield. Amulet. We've got Death Attunement allocated for +1 Specters. Rings, pretty simple. Like this one doesn't even have a craft on it. Body armor is just a random 6-link. But yeah, I swapped it over to SRS, and I played it for, I don't know, probably 2-3 days, and I don't know, just not a fan of SRS and how it plays. Defense, I mean, we got decent block, we're res capped, a little bit of armor, not a tanky build. I'm sure there's 1,400 different fucking SRS builds out there that are a lot better than this one. I even took the jewels out of this for a different character, so it has none of the Ghastly Eye jewels that you would want. But that's kind of the basic framework of the tree. It's just a basic standard minion tree, honestly. There's nothing really special about this. For Ascendancy nodes, if you do play this, you're going to want Radiant Crusade and Wavering Crusade. That's your first, second lab. Your third lab is going to be Bastion of Hope, and your fourth lab is going to be Radiant Faith. So, we'll run a map here. This character can't do very high maps. I think the last thing I took it into was like Tier 3 or Tier 4 maps as an SRS build. I don't know. Let's run a Tier 4. Also, I'm not going to be running like full maps on every one of these characters. I'm pretty much just going to like walk in, show you the build, and that's that. Alright, so pretty much like every other SRS build, you walk around and you hit your SRS button. You pull up your Sentinel of Radiance every, whatever, 38 seconds? Yeah, 32 seconds, and that's that. Your SRSs just kind of go out and target and kill shit, and I don't know, as someone who quite enjoys minions, I really don't enjoy this one. I've not really enjoyed SRS for a while. I think it's good for leveling, but I think that's, for me personally, I would just rather play zombies, skeletons, or specters at that point, like if I'm going to go in-game with it. Because this having to cast shit is really annoying as a minion build to me. Minions should be automated, and you shouldn't have to cast this often, so yeah, that was the build. I will say it does have decent damage, even without any of the jewels on it. Now, granted, it's a tier 4 map, but I mean, it's still pretty decent damage for what it is. So, yeah, let's hop into the next build here. Next up, we have BrandsNewBrand. And, yeah, you probably have already guessed it. It's been on Reddit every day since the fucking league launched. It is a Penance brand of Dissipation character. Now, mine's a little different than most people's. Mine has got one job and one job only, and that is it farms lab. It farms Uber lab. That's all I do on this character. Any day there's a good lab layout, I buy a divine worth of offerings, which is like 20 to 25, and I run every one of them. The reason is, this build is super comfy for lab traps, and the Eternal Lab can drop the Emperor's Mastery Jewels, which are like 40 divine apiece, and I've gotten 2 in the last week from running lab. So, yeah, that's what this build does. It doesn't really have, it's not one of the big billions and billions of DPS Penance brand builds. It's just thrown together, it's super comfy, and I run lab with it. Scepter, is that fractured cast speed? Or synthesize, I don't know, it's got a fuck cast speed mod on it. Spell damage, helmet's res, there's the gems, shield just +1 all fizz spells. Realistically, you want +1 spells here too, but I'd rather have the cast speed, because I'm running lab. Amulet, +1. Rings are just res. Gloves are res and AoE, because I'm stacking AoE because of lab. Boots are just move speed. Belt is just res. And then my gem links are actually a little different than most people's, I think. I'm running increased area of effect, increased crit, strikes, and damage, faster casting, and empower. I feel like, I don't think that's the most optimal gem setup, but I don't know, it's what I like. And it gives me enough AoE so I can just kind of cast once, and one brand will pretty much clear a screen. As far as defense goes, decent res, decent block, pretty good armor. The main reason this build is tanky against lab traps is because I am Elder's Battery and Mind Over Matter. And due to the Ascendancy with Consecrated Ground, I am, like, you can just stand in lab traps. This is a tree. It's got a lot of travel nodes on this tree. Because you're taking brand nodes and life over here. You're jumping down to the Scion for life. I do have an Unnatural Instinct here, which gives AoE, mana cost, just a lot of shit. And then you're jumping over here for evasion and all the crit nodes up here. So it's quite a traveling tree, but I'm not going to run a full lab here. I'm just going to run, like, the first area, and then I'll show you, like, the first at Zaro, and that's that, because, yeah, I can't be bothered to run the entire lab on camera. We still have, like, 3 other builds to go through, but, I mean, you can see it's every Penance brand build that everybody else is playing this league. You've seen one, you've seen them all. They're not anything fancy. I was kind of hoping there'd be some traps here so I could show you. Oh, here we go. So, for Argus, you just curse him and you walk around and he dies. So. Oh, here we go. Here's some traps. So let's kill all these monsters. And then you can see I can kind of just stand here. And I don't really take damage. Like, I can even stand, you know, here in between 2 of them, and as soon as they stop hitting me, I instantly regen. And this is Eternal Lab. I'm sure you could do like the Uber Lab with it. I just haven't. I don't know. You probably have a better chance for Mastery Jewels, but I don't know. Eternal Lab's easy and it's nice. So I'll see you when I get to Zaro. Alright, so here we are at final phase at Zaro. And the whole idea is don't get hit. He can one-shot this build, and he has one-shot this build. So basically, you walk up, you cast a bunch of brands, you hit your hatred, you curse him, and then you just don't stop moving. And he dies, and you get treasure keys. So, yeah. And that's pretty much what this build is, just does. Is just run lab. all day, every day, that there's a good lab. Let's see, what are we going to get? Transfigured. None of them are good. None of them are good. Perfect. Awesome. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much my Penance brand build. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so up next we have Spiders and Specters. And as you can probably guess, this is a Auricoli's Fang build. This is a really, really good mapping build. I've always kind of liked Auricoli's Fang. If you don't know what it does, it gives you a chance to it gives you a level 1 raised spider on kill. So the whole idea is you put a bunch of support gems inside of it, use a squire to give it a 6 link, and yeah. I'm using corpse walkers so that when I walk around it makes corpses. I'm using a Valregalia, I'm using a Queen's Hunger so that I can have offerings affect me, and it triggers one of each of the 3 offerings every 5 seconds. So as I'm walking, I'm constantly getting one of the offerings. So I'll kind of mouse over the gems here. The helmet is basically just minion life, because that's what's got my Specters in it. The Specters are Carnage Chieftain and a Host Chieftain. Running triple curse on this build, so I do have the Amulet Anointed, Profane Proxy with Malevolence. I'm running Gravebind as well, so that everything is technically being killed by me. And that's it. So I have Arcanist Brand with Temp Chains. I have a Malevolence on my Skitterbots. And I have Despair as an aura. The reason is I'm an occultist. And I have Profane Blue. So as my spiders run around and kill stuff, everything is cursed, so everything explodes. I also am taking Withering Presence and Void Beacon for the Wither, and Unholy Authority for another curse. As far as the passive tree goes, it's pretty simple. You're just taking a lot of jewel sockets, and I'm using an Amahu's Gaze for Ghastly Eye Jewels, give minions dot. So, yeah. Pretty simple tree other than that. Just a lot of Ghastly Eye Abyssal Jewels. So, let's run a map here. I'm also running 2 writhing jars. I don't know. I have a bunch of flasks, so yeah. Running 2 of them, you could probably get away with running 1. I've also seen quite a few people use this build as, I've also seen people not just run Corpse Walker or Gravebind and use something like Divine Ire to trigger your spiders. Because once you initially trigger them, they'll keep triggering themselves. Alright, so you enter a map, you kind of walk around a little bit, get some corpses, you pop your writhing jars, and you get your spiders. And then, yeah, you just walk behind them and they attack and explode everything. Kind of like strapping a bunch of plastic explosives to spiders. So this map is kind of sucky for this because there's 3 bosses. Probably should have done a little bit better of a map for a showcase here, but whatever. I'd like to find at least one of the little bosses so I can kind of show a little bit of the boss DPS. The bossing on this isn't bad. You don't have a lot of defense. You're kind of just staying behind your spiders is the defense of the build. Is let your minions kill everything. But, I mean, you can see you curse... Once you curse a boss with Arcanist Brand, I mean, it has 3 curses on it, so... Yeah. That's it. On to the next one. Alright, so next we have SunWuXiangJiguang or something. I don't know. I looked up a bunch of Chinese names, and that's what it gave me. So, this is my Cyclone Slayer. This character is wearing a headhunter. It has a Starforge, a Carcass Jack, Stampede. Like, the whole idea behind this character is running low-tier yellow maps and running them as fast as it can. So, wearing a Headhunter, wearing a Progenesis, Starforge because it's a Fizz crit build. I got an Abyssus because any melee Fizz build is going to run an Abyssus. You can't. There's just so much Fizz damage on that. Amulet's rare. The ring is rare. This is a mark of submission with vulnerability in it. I'm wearing a Carcass Jack for the AoE. I'm actually using Cyclone of Tumult on here because I wanted the extra Fizz damage per stage. Stampede, so you always have 50 move speed, regardless on if you're cycloning or just walking. And then the gloves are just rare with res. Yeah, it's a pretty bog standard Slayer build. Crit, two-hand swords, a lot of leech. We're running Valpact. A lot of leech, a lot of sword, a lot of crit. As far as Ascendancy, Impact for AoE, Brutal Fervor for the Perma-Leech, Bane of Legends because our Starforge means that you can't do elemental damage. This means you can't take reflected Fizz damage. You can run any map modifier except for cannot regen. And the reason is because we actually regen a little bit of mana. Overwhelm for crit chance. I will say, if you're going to play this build, like actually legitimately play this and progress it, number one, I would not run a Carcass Jack. I would run something like a Belly of the Beast. Number two, I would not run a Starforge. I would actually do either an Aziri's Disfavor or a really nice crafted rare two-handed axe. Mainly because axes have better passive nodes than swords. And I probably wouldn't go Valpact. And Leech. I would probably stack a bunch of res and defense. Because the build doesn't have a lot of defensive measures in it. So the whole idea behind, the playstyle of the build is you walk into your map, you pop your flash, you hold right click, and you don't stop holding right click until either you run out of mana because you ran out of mobs or you finish the map. I mean, there's a screen-wide AoE Cyclone, we're Fizz, we're cursing everything, like it's... With Progenesis, because of and how much leech we have, I wouldn't say you're immortal, but as long as you don't get one shot or you die to degens, you're pretty safe. It doesn't have a lot of damage in its current state, but it's got enough damage to do yellow maps, which is all I ever wanted from it and all I ever asked it to do. And because we're wearing a Headhunter, we kill rares, we gain their modifiers, and that's that. Show you a little bit of the boss DPS on it. It doesn't have a lot. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's your standard Cyclone big AoE build. There's not been a lot of changes to Cyclone builds since Legion League, and yeah. But Headhunter is pretty much like 90% of the damage on this build is because of Headhunter. So, yeah. Let's pop our, what do we get? Simulacrum Specters. Awesome. So, that's the build. And let's go to the next one. Alright, so next up we have JugsAreLyfe. And this is probably my favorite character that I've made this league. And if nothing changes and nothing gets nerfed, this is definitely what I'm going to start next league. This is a Volcanic Fisher of Snaking build. It is very tanky. It has a lot of res. You're pretty much just one-shotting the entire screen. Yes, I'm wearing a Mage Blood. I shouldn't be wearing a Mage Blood. I should be wearing an Orange Anguish. But I have a Mage Blood, so I'm going to wear it. What Orange Anguish does, there's like 3 things that make this build work. There's an Orange Anguish, there's Relic Ashes and Patience, and there's Ashes of the Stars. Relic Ashes and Patience says you count as having your max Endurance Frenzy and Power Charge. Now you can't ever spend those, but you just always have them, so you're gaining the benefits of them. Orange Anguish says that your basically your endurance charges turn into brutal charges. Brutal charges give you 3% chance to deal triple damage and 10% increased stun threshold per brutal charge. We have 10 brutal charges. We're gaining 30% chance to deal triple damage, 100% increased stun threshold. Ashes to the Stars gives quality to all skill gems. Volcanic Fissure is a really cool gem in that you hit the ground and it makes an explosion and then it snakes around. Okay? The more quality you have, the more times it snakes. So the gem has 20 quality. Okay? Ashes of the Stars is giving it an additional 27 quality. So we're getting 2 extra snakes from this. If you wanted to, you could run something like an enhance on this and get even more snake, like more explosions. And the explosions can overlap, but the same explosion, like that explosion can hit the boss, that explosion, like all 4 of those explosions can hit the same boss or same mob. So it's a really nice mapping build because you just walk in a straight line and you're blowing up the whole screen, and it's really good for single target. Basically, it's just a power charge stacking build. So you're using an Eventuality Rod. I have a bunch of my utility stuff stacked in here with faster attacks and life tap. I'm using Seismic Cry to exert the Volcanic Fissure of snaking, because whatever you do for that first hit, every time it repeats, it gets the same modifiers as that initial hit. Again, I'm running an Abyssus because we are a Fizz converted to fire build. We're converting it through 60% of Fizz converted to fire through Volcanic Fissure. We're converting 40% through the tree. So, yeah, Ashes of the Stars I already talked about. Rings. Ignore this ring, I'll go over it in a minute. Herald of Purity, Cast on Death, Blood and Sand. It's your same kind of standard Fizz build. Now, the reason I said ignore this ring is you actually want to run Assassin's Mark and Mark on hit, but I found this ring that gives curse enemies with flammability on hit, so I ended up running it instead, and because I have Serpent Stance anointed, I only have 1 curse. I could actually run, like I could anoint Whispers of Doom, double curse, you're going to gain even more damage. The passive tree is where the build kind of gets expensive. So, starting off with Ascendancy, we're a Juggernaut. We're taking Unflinching, Unyielding, Undeniable, and Unbreakable. I'll go over this tree in a moment. The rest of it is just a lot of AoE, a lot of fire, and a lot of staff nodes. So, we're taking Warcry nodes, we're taking Endurance charges, we're taking Frenzy charges, Jewel Socket, more Endurance charge nodes, life nodes, more crit and maim, life and war cries, more fire nodes. This is where we're converting the rest of our Fizz to fire. Armor nodes, jewel sockets, I'll go over jewels in a minute. Endurance charges, staff nodes, a medium cluster with, or a large cluster with 2 jewel sockets for Fuel the Fight, and Overlord. Overlord is the main one you want here because it gives you Fortify. Going up, we're taking more staff nodes, life, jewel sockets, elemental nodes, reservation, and finally more staff nodes. So the jewels, this is where it gets expensive. I'm running Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame with Tawaha. Basically, it gives you the trigger. So when you use a slam, it happens again, basically. It's like having multi-strike for your slam skills. Next jewel that's quite expensive is the Sublime Vision here. And it's a Determination with +1 endurance charges. This, I think, is like 10 Divines in League right now. These Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flames are like 3... I think they're like 2.5 Divines each. This is just a Corrupted Blood jewel. Next jewel is That Which Was Taken. Now, there's 2 things that really matter on this jewel, and that's the AoE per endurance charge and the Fizz damage if you've dealt a crit recently. Because we're crit, we have such a high crit that we're pretty much always gaining that extra flat Fizz, which is then converted to fire, and scaled by everything else. The life and energy shield on kill and mana on kill is because I'm running a Mage Blood, and it just kind of keeps me alive. Another thing that's really important on this build is the Wildwood Ascendancy. So I'm running a Berserker's Usurn Charm of Juggernaut. So this gives Warcry's power, and you get Rage, and I'm getting Chaos Res per Endurance Charge. Because we have 10 Endurance Charges, we gaining 50 Chaos Res from this one charm, which is incredibly powerful. Next is a Juggernaut Charm of Juggernaut. This just gives you, again, Chaos Res, and then it gives you AoE per Endurance Charge. Also, if you have the Final Ascendancy, you just basically want another AoE jewel per Endurance Charge. So, I'm going to run a map here. Now, keep in mind, I'm not going to run this with Arn's Anguish. I'm going to run it with a Mage Blood just so it doesn't take me, so it just goes even faster. But keep in mind, I'm losing out on 30% chance to deal triple damage and 100% stun threshold. That's also why I'm running Endurance Charge on melee stun, because we're pretty much perma-stunning. We can't perma-stun everything, but we're stunning probably 90% of the time, I would say. So we're just gaining more Endurance Charge. Like, we're gaining, 40% more damage off of that one support gem, which is just incredible. So we'll run a T16 Caldera here. The only things you can't run on this build is no regen and elemental reflect, because we're converting everything to Ellie from Fizz. Pretty simple mapping playstyle. You're going to walk around and you're just going to hit Volcanic Fissure, and it's going to blow everything up on the screen. Because of how much AoE we have, it's also our Herald of Ashes stacking AoE. Yeah, everything just kind of explodes. Now granted, I have a crap load of move speed because I'm wearing a Mage Blood, but I can assure you, if I didn't have a Mage Blood, like, it's not needed for this build. You can just run an Arn's Anguish, you're going to have so much more damage than I do, and you're going to be able to do bossing. You're pretty much going to be able to do, I would say, 90-95% of the content in the game. And as long as you don't have a Mage Blood and you're not, trying to min-max it, I'd say the build's probably around 5 to 10 Divine for a good, comfortable version. But, I mean, as you can see, everything just explodes. There's a little bit of a single target demonstration, so. Yeah, that's pretty much the build. It's just a really good all-around comfy build. That, and it's really showy and fancy because of how much AoE you have. Your Herald of Ice is exploding, the Volcanic Fissure is exploding. Kind of want to get to the boss here and show you what it looks like on a T16 boss. And, I mean, this is in a Delirium too, so. I don't know. It's definitely the best melee build that I've played in a long time. And you don't even have to be near the boss. You can kind of just walk around, and your Volcanic Fissures auto target and blow up the boss. And yeah. And there we go. We'll collect our Delirium, and that's going to be it. So, this has been my build go-through for the League. If you want to know more, like I said, I'll post the path of buildings below. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. I've been Mike, and I'll see you guys in the next video.